Good night and welcome to Mindful Life 472. I am your host, Nathan Springer. Usually the co-host, but we interchange sometimes. The host is doing what the host be doing, living that star life. So welcome. It is 9:55 on the 12th of the third month in the year of our Lord 2025. Yep, the year is speeding along. Third month of the year. And 3 out of 12 is what? A quarter? We're a quarter way through the year. Imagine that. Quarter way through the year already. 2025. A nice year to be alive. Interesting stuff as per usual. Once you're on the inside, make sure you hit that like button. Double tap the screen out there in TikTok land if you want to know how to hit that like button out there. That's what you do. You double tap the screen. Time flies. It sure does. It sure does. Life with cerebral palsy. It sure does. Whether you're having fun or not, I have recognized, you don't have to be having fun for the time to fly, The fun isn't required. To say time flies when you're having fun. Really and truly, it flies either way. The fun isn't a super necessary part of the time flying. Time flies. It just does. Woy, what's going on to happen after the 17th in terms of what, Nicholas? Woy, Tony the ambassador. Good night. Welcome. We are on the inside here. What are we talking about tonight? Well, primarily in the news out here in the Caribbean, in Trinidad and Tobago to be specific, the United Kingdom has said, the whole no visa business we were giving you all before, we changed our minds. Yeah, we think you all gonna need those visas after all. We dialed that back. That's what the United Kingdom is saying. Let's jump into it and see the whys of this, if it can make sense to us. No more visa-free entry to UK for TT nationals after asylum surge. The UK government has announced today that with immediate effect, as of midnight tonight, immediately, all nationals of Trinidad and Tobago will need a visa before traveling to the UK, including on short visits. The decision to introduce a visa requirement has been taken due to a significant increase in the number of Trinidad and Tobago nationals coming to the UK as visitors only to claim asylum on arrival, constituting a misuse of the immigration system. Jose, we didn't start that long. It happened with Brexit. Otis says, hey, UK, how long may I see your live? Yeah, boy, we out here, Torres. Who are the Trinidadians seeking asylum? Abdul, no Otis. Otis, you should take that back. You know what? The people seeking asylum, at least one of them, you don't want to call them a sissy boy. Just trust me on that. You don't want to call them that. And that's kind of the issue. After the current Prime Minister steps down but still holds the top leader role up for the party, well, when that happens, the UNC promises they're going to go to court over it. I don't think that court case is going to be resolved before the election either way, so they're just going to spend more money on their lawyers and make noise about it, attempting to drag out some political points. But I don't think the PNM faithful care. I don't think the UNC faithful are really bothered either way. So I don't think it's anything. In response, CARICOM and Foreign Affairs Minister Dr. Amory Brown said, this move is within their rights as a sovereign nation, but we do not see it as a proportionate response to what UK authorities conveyed to us, which was the observation that a relatively small number of TNT nationals were misusing the UK immigration system by being processed for an ETA in the normal existing process and then suddenly applying for asylum after arrival. The UK's relationship with Trinidad and Tobago remains a strong and friendly one, the British High Commission said in its statement issued on Wednesday. The statement read, "This decision has not been taken lightly, and the UK government regularly reviews its visa and immigration policies to ensure they remain effective. The changes, which come into effect immediately, will apply to all Trinidad and Tobago nationals." All right. Let's see if we could dig in deeper on this. Good night, Ting Ting. Good night. The same problem we had with Canada in the 80s and 70s seeking asylum for what? Yes, partially. Almost 800 TNT nationals applied for UK asylum in 2 years. 400 per year. Alleged gangsters and their families and the local influencer are among the almost 800 Trinidad and Tobago nationals who have applied for asylum in the United Kingdom since 2023. The number of asylum seekers was disclosed in an explanatory memorandum. According to the document, there has been a significant increase in nationals of TNT who have traveled to the UK for asylum. In particular, there has been a sustained increase in asylum claims by nationals of TNT in the most recent 8 quarters. Let's look at the numbers in the last 8 quarters. This is from 2023 quarter 1 till 2024 quarter 4. The numbers are as follows: 79, 111, 55, 108, 73, 56, 106, and 209 in that last quarter in 2024. $209 in that last quarter. Let's read a little bit on. In January, listen to this, in January 2025, senior multimedia investigative journalist Mark Bassant reported on a secret intelligence report prepared by Trinidad and Tobago law enforcement authorities being sent to United Kingdom authorities, warning of the presence of a top member of the 7 gang who poses a serious and immediate threat to the safety and security of the United Kingdom. A certain alleged community leader and an entourage, and his entourage, very interestingly, slipped out of Trinidad a little while before the SOE kickoff. That, to me, that was curious in and of itself. The timing of that right before the SOE kickoff was very curious. But if that certain leader left Trinidad and Tobago's waters, went over to the United Kingdom, and is applying for asylum there, and if he is with an entourage, because they said and family, is this something that the United Kingdom would be very okay with? And interestingly enough, it's our own security forces that sent that notification out to the United Kingdom. So if, as the United Kingdom, the local Trinidad and Tobago security forces are telling me that gangsters are applying for asylum in my country, and these gangsters are in a battle till death with each other, how long before some other rival gangster goes across as an asylum seeker too and introduces the warfare that they're having here over there? Now, if you're coming at it with what is fair and what is right on the extremely long historic timeline version, well, of course we know that Britain and the United Kingdom and they have a moral price to pay, as it were, for what they did before and all of that. But that's not what I'm talking about now. It's nearly impossible to try and get a balance on that and what they should and shouldn't and should and shouldn't do now. We're talking about countries as they stand right now. Each individual sovereign country seeking their own interest. Abdul Hakam says, so then UK immigration wasn't doing proper background checks all the time, Abdul asks. But that guy has never been convicted of a crime, as far as I could recall. Yes, he has been charged, but he hasn't been convicted. So, what the allegation is that they're doing, Abdul, is they're just going across. Remember, there was no visa requirement. So all he had to do was buy a ticket. He is not banned from flying. He isn't a criminal on the books. Buy a ticket. Say you're going for a short-term stay, You're just going over to, chill and shop in London. And when you touch down, you say, well, I am applying for asylum. And that's the problem that the UK government is saying. That it's not just that people who are applying for asylum from Trinidad going through the full process in the correct way. No. They were saying they're coming for a short-term stay. They're saying they're coming for a little vacation. And once they reach the United Kingdom, then they turn around and say, nah, actually we're applying for asylum. But don't you think you would have to provide proof of clear and present danger to get asylum? Well, you see, that's kind of the whole problem and the bacchanal. This is what the orange man over in the United States has been arguing about. Because there are certain political groups who have opened up the availability of asylum seeking. And the thing with asylum is, by and large, there must be a hearing. So there has to be some hearing to determine whether this person is okay to be an asylum seeker. So when is that hearing going to be? In the meantime, the person is there. What you gonna do about that? In the report, the top gang member is described as a prominent organized crime figure from Trinidad and Tobago of the notorious Rasta City gang called Seven. His criminal network is involved in a range of illicit activities including narcotics trafficking, arms smuggling, unlicensed gold mining, gold smuggling, targeted killings, and international money laundering, states the report. The Express also reported that a gang member named in the report has sent for 7 of his children since settling in the United Kingdom. Oh, HYMC. Man sent for 7 of his children. Well, Otis, that's the proper means to do it. The proper way to do it is you're supposed to apply from here and get through. But that's the problem that the UK government is highlighting. People are not doing that because there are no visa requirements. People are buying a ticket, hopping on a plane, and once they reach there, then they see that. Exactly, Z. And remember, there are asylum activists and immigrant activists and open border activists in those countries. After someone is there and then their family is settled in, and then the UK government 5 years down the road is, after they hear the case and they say, well, now we have to post this person back, and then the people come out and protest. No, look at the man and look at his children, how you could do that? That is so inhumane. Very interesting, Fire Flame, very interesting. So one seeking asylum in the United States, the next one seeking asylum in the United Kingdom. Well, the Trini one, I ain't hear no news on that. But I saw what's the Jamaican artist? Squash. Squash is right now in ICE custody. Tough luck, Squashy. Anyway, I had no plans to go to England, so I good. And I mean, to the average person who was going to go to the United Kingdom, I don't think you're going to struggle to get a visa. That's what the visa requirement is supposed to be about. That now they could determine, now we don't want this one, now we want that one. Okay, Mikhail Modesto, did you just sign in? Or are you here to be Mr. Obvious after we just went through explaining this? Because we just went through that, and I'm not naming the names. Oh, you're now rich. Well, yeah, that's what we were talking about. Good night, sweet Douglas. The UK, it is nice. Well, the alleged prominent figure from the Seven Gang, the alleged prominent figure, he finds it nice too, apparently. Very interesting stuff. Greetings, aspiring. Greetings. Do you blame the United Kingdom? Would you have done differently if you were them? Would you have left it visa-less and allow free movement into your borders by people who are obviously abusing this? Yep, Abdul. Yep, I saw. And that's the thing. I don't blame them in that case. In that case, I can't blame them because countries seek their own interests. UK is not nice, Joe Gibbs says it is like a third world country. Okay. Apparently it's nice enough for him. He is okay with staying there. It would be interesting to see if they can or if they will or what the attempt would be to get him out. If they will, I don't know. I don't know. But it would be interesting to see. It would be interesting to see. It's one of the expensive places to live, yeah. But I mean, to some people, money isn't as much of a problem. If you have the money, expensive is expensive filters out just some other people that you may not want to be around anyway. It's not too much of a problem for you, especially if your money is allegedly ill-gotten gains anyway. It's not like you worked so hard for it. So Trinidad Security Services actually want him back, or they just say nah, throw a spoke in the wheel? I think they say nah and throw a spoke in the wheel because they didn't even, as far as I know, it's not like they applied for deportation or something like that. They just informed on him. They just rat him out and leave it as that, because as far as I know, it's not like they were requesting they return him for a crime, because as far as I know, all of his court cases have been cleared. The guy is not under arrest. He is not under any current charge. He isn't convicted of any crime. Maybe if he was around during the SOE, they would have done one of those that they did for several other people, you know, the special detention order out of the SOE. They may have done one of those for him, but those aren't necessarily based on provable evidence anyway. So I don't know if you could issue a detention order during a state of emergency and use that as grounds to get a man deported. I don't know if that would be the case. As far as I know, yes, Otis. Oh, Theanisa, or the one Isa. Yeah, Mikhail, that's how it goes, eh? That's how it goes. The baddest bad don't really want to get the results of what badness gives. Really and truly. Maybe when you're under 30 and your brain's still a little hyper, it isn't as concreted on you, but someone with over 7 children and well into their midlife, it's not like they want to end up a statistic dead on the side of the road. No, they want to live their life and enjoy their children too. So no surprise that they run really and truly. I would rather pay 50% tax if I know I'm benefiting from it. Example, free first world treatment. I think most people don't mind paying taxes if there is reciprocal benefits. The problem is that most people don't see that as being the case. Most people don't see that paying that much tax actually gives that much benefit in turn. We'd see how all of that goes. And even in some of those nations, many of those nations around the world that have been laughing at the United States having to pay for healthcare because they had their free healthcare like Canada. Well, we'd see how well Canada could balance that free healthcare if the United States reciprocates all tariffs. So you have to stand up on your own economic footing now. You're not using the US as a buffer so that you could have your social safety net and have it very wide and broad. Recently, Canada attempted to rebuff Trump and those reciprocal threats of tariffs. They threatened to shut down power, but when you don't have the cards, you don't have the cards. You just don't have those cards to play. The guy with the Trump is the guy with the Trump. Nothing you could really do about that. If you have no piece higher than 10, they could throw Jack in your face and you can't hang the Jack. For those of us who understand the All Fours reference. If you're viewing this from somewhere else and you don't know All Fours, ask me about it. We should go through it sometime. Trump calling all bluffs, and you see, that's the reality. That's the reality of it. If indeed, as the orange guy is saying, and it seems pretty much true, that Canada protects their economy from the US economy by tariffs, and he is saying, if you continue to do this, we're going to tariff you too. Isn't that fair? Still don't understand how the US runs things rather than the UK. Look at their GDP and you'll understand why. And partially, a lot of that is because of World War II. World War II saw the United Kingdom basically bleed themselves dry to fend off the Nazis. And in exchange for the US helping them in World War II, basically they handed over a lot of their ill-gotten gains from the hundreds of years of colonial empire and handed a lot of that over to the United States. That's part of the reason. The US runs things because they have an extremely powerful market, because they are the largest, generally, free market country in the world. They run on the free market model more than many of the other countries. That's why they run things. The UK can't run things when government spending is sucking up all of the extra money. You know how many people try to teach me All Fours, and for the life of me, I can't get it? Nah, man, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't even admit that as a Trini, man. No, man. No, stop it. Stop. An economist is saying that maybe some of this tariff war could be beneficial for us. Economists, tariff on Canada could bring benefits for TNT, apparently. Economist Dr. Valmiki Arjun believes that there are both pros and cons for Trinidad and Tobago following the introduction of a 25% tariff on all imported steel and aluminum products from Canada starting today. Arjun warned that if the tariffs come into effect, the added cost will naturally be passed on to the consumer as higher prices. For instance, local manufacturers that import machinery and parts from the US will have to pay a higher price for these items, which compounds their operating costs. Similarly, the construction sector relies on reinforced steel, fabricated metal structures, and aluminum products. Higher imported prices of these materials for us means higher construction costs locally, he explained. Cheap labor, plenty profits for European countries, systematic. I don't know fully what you mean there. How is that possible? Explain. I got a call yesterday. It seems like the PNM is mobilizing. Election is in the air. Of course they are. How is it possible that we benefit from those tariffs? Oh, how good a smelter would have been right now. Whenever the TNT Iron and Steel Company Limited, which acquired the former ASYLUM plant in Point Lisas, becomes operational, the higher steel prices may present opportunities for us to export competitively priced steel to the US market, potentially increasing market share and providing a beneficial counterbalance to rising import costs, said Arjun. Here's how it's possible to benefit us. Here's how it's possible to benefit us really and truly. Any company in our country that is already dealing on a no tariff kind of basis, you would only benefit from this. So, for example, if you were already selling steel into the United States without tariff barriers to your sales, now that they increase the price basically on Canadian imports, your import would either remain the same price or you would be able to fluctuate the price, increasing your profit margin. I don't know if that's making sense to what I'm saying to you. If we already, let's say we have no tariff against US steel and US aluminum coming into Trinidad and Tobago, which means they are going to issue us with no tariffs on our steel going into their market. If indeed our ASYLUM plant starts back up and starts producing steel again, it would be very profitable in comparison to the Canadian metal for us to sell to the United States. What Trumpy boy basically says he is trying to do is he's trying to take the government's hand off of the scales on the entire international free market trading business. So no country's government could put their thumb on the scale to allow an unprofitable business to look like it's profitable. So Canadian dairy and cheese and other products could sell inside of Canada for, let's say they could sell it for $10, they could sell a gallon for whatever the price is. And they could sell it for that price because they already have, I think, 100% or upwards of that tariff on American dairy products coming into Canada. So if an American dairy company wants to sell their product in Canada, they have to pay the tariff in order to export it to Canada. So the product would end up being more expensive in the Canadian market, meaning the local Canadian dairy product will be much cheaper for regular Canadians to buy. So this local dairy product, the company that does that could run a less profitable business plan and still remain profitable because you're squeezing out the competition from the United States. What Trump is saying is, if you charge us a tariff to get our product into your country, whatever the tariff you charge us, we are going to charge you back the same thing. So then those Canadian companies would not be able to sell into the United States, which is a massive market for Canadian manufacturers. So they're going to lose some of their market. Or they could remove all of the tariffs and allow American companies to compete with your local companies on even footing. Now, in the general thinking, that should be better, because what that will do, competition across borders will just send the prices down. That's the idea. If everybody removes the tariffs, it will send the prices down. And it's not that according to the orange guy and his economic crew, it's not that they want the tariffs as much as they want no tariffs by no one, so that we could all sell freely, really and truly, to each other. But the problem with that comes in as you talk about markets of scale. If you have a small company in Trinidad and Tobago, would you actually be able to compete with a billion-dollar company coming out of the United States? People who buying will be paying the price increase. Yes, they will, but it's not about them. It's not about them. It's about squeezing that competition out. So it's like, okay, we have Motooks, Mabel, Swiss, and let's say there's some foreign peanut butter company. If we charge a tariff on the foreign peanut butter company, the foreign peanut butter is going to be more expensive to buy. But the idea of that is to force us into having to buy the local peanut butter, because the tariff will just be on the imported good. And if the companies find that this is not ideal, then lobby your government to remove all of the tariffs, and then no one would have to pay the tariff. But yeah, the problem with that is, can a small local Trini company legitimately compete with a massive US company? Exactly. That's what they did in cement. They squeezed out the imported cement and left the local cement. They did it with tariffs. So if there are no tariffs, us, the consumers, the customer, would be the person benefiting, really and truly. And the reason I kind of feel he would succeed more than some people think is because they actually do have the cards. Yes, we did, Otis. Yes, we did. Because they actually have the cards. I believe in the case of Canada, the US exports to Canada is 1% or less than 1% of their export market, while Canadian exports to the United States was 14% or something like that. So if Canada tariffs 300%, locks the US out of their market, it's only going to hurt 1% or less of the US exporters. If the US does the same to Canada, it's going to hurt 14% of theirs. Yikes. And by nature, almost all countries in the world function like that with the United States. The United States is the ultimate buying market, the ultimate selling market. That's where you want your product to go for sale. So nearly every country in the world has a trade deficit with the United States. or they have the United States has a trade deficit with nearly every country in the world. Or at least it's designed for them to have one. So if they put the squeeze on you, you can't really squeeze them back at the same level. You think they'll ever reverse this visa thing like how Canada reversed it for us? I don't doubt that they might. Here's how they might. I think if they change their asylum requirements, how they do the whole asylum process, then they might do that. But if it is, and especially if we look at the numbers, when I was calling the numbers, the last quarter of 2024 saw more than 200 Trinis apply for asylum status. What that seems to signal is that it's catching on as a fad. It's catching on as a fad. And if it's catching on and you don't stop it, that number will just keep increasing and keep increasing and keep increasing. So that's why I think they would stop it in that case. But ultimately, I don't think the United Kingdom has a problem with Trinidadians visiting. So if it's a case of somehow they could work around the whole asylum business and applications for asylum to allow it that you are free to visit, but you aren't free to just apply for asylum that easily, then they may, I think, return to that. Me. Don't fear China in region, says Foreign Minister. China says there is no excuse for concern over its growing engagement in this region. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi gave the assurance as he addressed the press conference in Beijing on Friday, attended by journalists from Latin America and the Caribbean. China LAC cooperation is South cooperation. There's only mutual support in this cooperation, no geopolitical calculations. In its engagement with Latin American countries, China follows the principles of equality and mutual benefit and never seeks a sphere of influence or targets any party, Wang Yi said. What people in LAC countries want is to build their own home, not to become someone's backyard. What they aspire to is independence and self-decision, not the Monroe Doctrine. Cooperation with China and LAC countries has won popular support because it respects the will of the people, meets the needs of regional countries, and provides reliable options and broad prospects for the revitalization of the region, he said. China is smart, eh? You have to give the Chinese government credit. They aren't fools. They are not fools. This is a speech obviously directed at how the US is attempting to do their influence campaign. And it's attempting to assure people that choosing China as your ally and backer doesn't include with it the kind of force and interference that the US has. That is a very tempting offer to many countries, where we could get benefit without you telling us how to live our lives, without you attempting to run roughshod over us. That's a very tempting offer. Now, the thing is, I think China wants their pound of flesh. It's just that China can plan on a much longer term scale, so it wouldn't be as obvious to see what it's going to be. But the reality is, being that we indeed are the United States backyard, Latin American countries, you are going to be forced to make a choice, I think. Whose history is worse, China or USA? History in what do you mean worse? Like, who has done more wicked things? If you're looking for worse in terms of that style, I'll say that China is considerably worse in terms of that. But China, I believe, is the longest surviving continuous civilization. So that says a lot about them. The US as a civilization is what, 275 years or something like that. China has been there thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So they aren't the same. They really aren't the same. Now, in terms of benefits, on the face value, China is very tempting. The thing is, I don't know if it would be beneficial in the long term when they return to reap their pound of flesh. They are smarter than the orange man, Be Super Happy says. I think that's wishful talking. I don't see anything necessarily to say that is obviously true. I know many people wish that they would be smarter than the orange man, which is a strange thing to me, It's a strange thing to me because I don't want China to win that battle. I don't want the communists to dominate, to be honest with you. I don't want them to. I mean, you could buy into the propaganda of communists, but I don't. I would prefer that they don't win. The US and all their evil deeds understood, I still prefer them as the hegemony over China, to be honest. If we have to choose which is the big fish in the pond, I'll choose that side. I don't think so either, Otis. I don't think so either. Look at how China deals with those that they want to deal with. Look at the minorities in China. Look at the neighbors of China. Look at the enemies of China within their vicinity, within their sphere of influence, and look how they deal with them. I mean, China still deals with minorities inside of China as how the US dealt with Native Americans 200 years ago. And granted, the US did do it, but that's not going to work in the present context of the United States, while China is currently doing that. I mean, and if you're worried about racial dynamics, do you think the Han Chinese are particularly racially magnanimous? Do you think that they are racially egalitarian? Do you think so? Really? You sure? You sure about that? The US had their black president in 2008. How long do you think before China has a black president? Whew. Funny stuff. Funny stuff. Women does change everything. True. Very true. They do. Women are the changers. Dealing in geopolitics still, let's head over to Guyana. Guyana aware of Venezuelan sleepers, warns of treason charges. Hey, things looking dicey over in South America. A senior Guyana government minister Wednesday said that the authorities are aware of Venezuelan sleepers in the country, and there will be treason charges for anyone who support Venezuela's election to appoint a governor and other officials for the disputed Essequibo region. I wonder what's the punishment for treason. I wonder what's the punishment for treason in Guyana. I know in most countries, treason is one of those charges. You know, you could, they send you to the maker. We know that there are some sleepers here, We've put out few already. Home Affairs Minister Robeson Ben said, adding that any Guyanese national or others who are appointed following the elections will be charged with treason. If is a Guyanese who is appointed to be governor of Essequibo and be placed at Anna Regina, we will charge that person for treason and lock them up, each and every one of them. Last week, Guyana called on the Hague-based International Court of Justice to block Venezuela from engaging in electoral activities in the Essequibo region, even as neighboring countries have a pending border case before the judicial body. Venezuela is planning an election in Guyana's Essequibo region for May 25th, where Venezuela plans to elect a Venezuelan-led government inside of the Guyanese Essequibo region. And the problem Guyana is seeing that puts up is, in order to execute an election, then the Venezuelan authorities would have to first trespass into Essequibo to start doing infrastructure and planning out the election. So are the Venezuelan authorities going to just waltz into the people's place? Yes, that was the whole first part of the discussion, Torres. Are the Venezuelans just going to waltz in and hold an election there? Venezuela, based on a so-called referendum, has included Guyana's Essequibo region as part of its official map. That government of Venezuela now plans to hold elections for a governor and legislative council for, among other areas, the Essequibo region. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and the chairman of the National Electoral Council, Elvis Amoroso, have announced their intention to conduct elections in the Essequibo, an oil-rich region that makes up about 2/3 of Guyana and is home to 125,000 of its 800,000 citizens. Yikes. Venezuela has military superiority, Craig Ahai says. Well, I don't think that matters in the Western Hemisphere. I do not think there's a scenario where Venezuela uses their military against Guyana without triggering a response from the big dogs up north. That might be very interesting, Torres. That might be very interesting. It would be. Didn't he lose the election, Nicolas Boumen said? Not according to him and his government and his electoral council. So according to the United States, they're saying he lost that election and the election was unfair and all of that business. But according to him, the election was fair and he won. But yeah, I don't think Venezuela stands a realistic chance of using their military like that in this case. I just don't think it would work out for them and work out for their benefit. I think if it would have, they would have done it already. Because it's not like Guyana has much of a military to put up any real resistance. If it were possible for this to have a military conclusion, I think Venezuela would have done it a while ago. But they understand that it's not really a successful idea for them. And who are Venezuela's most powerful allies? Possibly Russia, Iran, maybe even sometimes China. Russia is currently fighting a battle. I don't think Russia could spare much military hardware to send across the world to South America to fight Guyana. Is Venezuela or Guyana in control of the matter? What do you mean? In control of the matter. Currently, the area is under Guyanese control. The area is currently recognized as part of Guyana. So Guyana is under control of it in that sense. Big Brother USA will step in for the Guyanese, for sure. For sure. And not just the Guyanese, for the oil and their companies. It's American and multinational companies that are functioning out of Guyana. And listen, Venezuela would be looking at this strategically too. If they trigger some kind of military action out there, then you are giving US the go ahead to probably get a military deposition, depose you as the government in Venezuela. Because let's say Venezuela attempts to get a military solution to this, pushes some military into the Essequibo region. The US sends over a bunch of carriers, they push them back out of the Essequibo region, and do you think they would stop right there, or do you think they would continue pushing that Venezuelan military as far as they could push them back? Very likely right to the capital until they get Maduro himself. So it's just not a good idea, I think, for Venezuela. That's why I think Venezuela would be provoking this. It may work much better for them to attempt to harass Guyana off of this land, to be a thorn in the side enough that Guyana kind of gives up on it. And if, as the US is alleging, and our own opposition leader is alleging, that Venezuela is a narco state, I highlighted this before. If they are a state that basically controls cartels and runs drugs, if that's what they're doing, then they could attempt to destabilize Guyana on that side. I don't know if you all were in the previous live where we spoke about, when was that? A little while ago, there was a report of some alleged Venezuelan gang members, drug runners, who assaulted a team of Guyanese army officers, military officers. If that's the way it goes, that you have cartels and gangs in the Essequibo region, making it ungovernable, making it unprofitable for any private company to attempt to do business there, well, that may be a different technique. But straight front-on military, I mean, stranger things have happened, but I just don't think it's to Venezuela's benefit. I don't see how they win that battle. And the reality is, even if you have a stronger military in the start isn't the end. Interesting. Very interesting. Maduro would end up like Osama if he does. Not impossible. All right, let's go into a little crime, a little local crime here. An interesting story. Just for the news of it, to some extent. APO9 says, I feel the US will take out Maduro. I don't doubt that they would like to. I don't doubt that at all. Crime of passion, provocation. Wife killer gets 3 years. A Williamsville man who knifed his wife to death in 2012 because of her continued extramarital affair with a man from the area will have to serve just over 3 more years in prison before being released. Sulal was charged with the murder of Shanti Sulal, 31, which took place on October 1st, 2012 at her Esmeralda Branch Road home after breaching a protection order and stabbing her multiple times to the chest in full view of their 2 minor children. Let's look at this story. According to the evidence, why he didn't just leave? We're gonna read it, Logan. We're gonna read it. According to the evidence, on the night of the killing, Sulal went to his wife's home and confronted her about the affair she was having. He then pushed her into the bed and stabbed her several times while her 2 children, ages 12 and 9, were also in the room. Otis says, considering the situation with the Cuban government and doctors, is it that different from our government and scholars? Yes, I would think it's different. If you're talking about the scholarships that people have to pay back, that's you, as it will, borrow money and you're paying it back. Different from people taking your salary. Shanti's father, who lived on the compound, heard his granddaughter screaming before seeing Shanti running from the house nude into the garage with a knife lodged in her chest. She collapsed and died. Upon going to his daughter's aid, the man saw Sulal standing in the doorway to Shanti's apartment saying, you're dead, before fleeing the scene. About 2 years later, he was arrested at Vecini Beach in Labrie. Upon his arrest, he informed police he was fed up of running and was happy to be captured. He informed the officers that on the day of the incident, when he confronted his wife about the affair, she had approached him with a knife. Based on statements given to police, Sulal had even caught his wife with the man in their marital home when they were engaging in sexual activities. Yes, Otis, it is. And it is a plausible defense. He stated the man with whom she was having the affair also confirmed to police that he and the woman had had a sexual relationship for about 4 years before she was killed. He stated that in many instances, when Sulal was not at home, he would go over to the house and have intercourse with the woman. Prior to being sentenced, Sulal's attorneys, Ramesh Lawrence Maraj SC and Michael Ruplal, submitted to the court that their client acted out of a loss of self-control, having known that his wife was having an affair. She had even informed him that the 2 children were not his, the attorneys stated. Sweet Douglas says why he didn't just walk away. Good question. Good question. But then, here's my question partially on some of that. Why didn't she just walk away? If you hate this man so much that you would go and have him raising other men's children, having other men in his home, on his marital bed, if you hate him that much, why didn't you walk away? Those aren't games to be played with. Further to that, they said Sulal suffered from post-infidelity stress disorder based on a psychiatric report. They noted that while gender-based violence and domestic violence were serious issues, the court should not overlook Siulal's mental health in deciding the appropriate sentence. Men's mental health continues to face social stigmas and other barriers to adequate treatment. Infidelity and its psychological impact have notably been considered as an issue which leads to the deterioration of one's mental health. Yes, Sweet Douglas, that's the actual term that they use. Consequently, this leads to extreme emotional and psychological responses. Post-infidelity stress disorder. You're pissed. This isn't funny, but the acronym spells PISD, right? So you're pissed. But, I mean, I didn't know it was an official thing. The one ASA says, how do we know if it's true? Wait, what? What do you mean, how do you know if it's true? the one is you are doubting that there is a reality of stress possibly breaking the mind of a man after certain levels of infidelity. You're doubting that? Like, I mean, I am not excusing any murderer, any abuser. But it's not just possible. It's likely. Very likely. Listen. Infidelity and the fallout from it is one of the most common causes and motives for crime. The Bible has jealousy is the rage of a man. The good book itself, in ink, has that. So it's not just possible. I think it's very likely. It is very likely. We just had an acid attack the other day because a woman thought she was getting horny. Yeah, people don't take those things very easily. It is something that, you know, could cause the mind to slip a little bit. Another relationship problem here. Cop's estranged girlfriend slaps and rubs him. A police officer was assaulted and robbed by his estranged girlfriend of items valued at almost $5,000. According to the police report, around 12:21 p.m. on Tuesday, the 40-year-old victim from Kunupia reported he was proceeding in a northerly direction along Southern Main Road, Kunupia, in his vehicle in company with his estranged girlfriend, a 30-year-old woman from Enterprise, Shogunas, whom he had accompanied to a doctor appointment. Bro, leave your ex now. Let's get a taxi. Why you playing Uber for your ex? Trouble one time. Trouble one time. You can't be the Uber for your ex. It just wouldn't work out, brother. The victim said upon reaching the vicinity of St. Anthony's Park, an argument ensued, and when he slowed down due to traffic, she dealt him a slap to the left side of his face and grabbed his grey Ted Baker glasses along with his black Adidas cap, together valued TT $4,932.25. The suspect then exited the vehicle and ran in a southerly direction along Southern Main Road, Kunupia. He looked for that, Sweet Douglas says. You know why I read those two stories after each other consecutively? Because I know that people would have the view about he looked for that and he put himself in a dangerous position in a case like this. Do you see the relevance to the previous case? If he looked for that, what would you say about she? If carrying your ex to a doctor's appointment could be enough looking for that trouble, what would cheating on your husband long term and bearing children that you say aren't his be considered? Woman held for slapping policeman boyfriend stealing hat glasses. A 30-year-old woman is in police custody after she was held for assaulting her boyfriend. I don't know where they held her. But they say they held her. So apparently she didn't get away. I wonder if he's going to press charges. If he's going to want to see her incarcerated. That's all I have for now, folks. That's the last of the stories we're doing tonight. Are there any further comments or questions on the inside before we dive out? They might make back up Sweet Douglas, I wouldn't doubt. You heard about the boxer who died? That's the teenager in Grandy who was stabbed by his girlfriend's family member. What's the topic and what's the feedback you got? We were talking about the visa and all of that. That was the topic. Visa. Then on from the visa, we spoke about just general immigration and all of that good stuff. Yeah, I read that story. Heartbreaking stuff. And you see, the story told, because according to what I read, the allegations according to what I read was that allegedly, apparently, the girlfriend gave a different kind of story to her family about the nature of their relationship. So when the family saw them actually close, the assumption was different. And I don't know how much of all of that is true, but I know it to be true that there have been instances, numerous times before, where girls, particularly younger girls, don't tell the full story when the proverbial shite hits the fan. When the faces hits the fan and starts spraying in all direction and troubles start to make, it's often easier for the young lady to excuse herself out of accountability in a situation. That's why, in that case, for many young men, you have to be smart. Not dream chase, bro. I am not excusing stab a man, lost him in the jail, because you could never give me reason to stab a teen boy as a big man. You're a big man, a big old man. Like, even if your blood go to your head over a boyfriend girlfriend thing with teenagers, unless is somebody trying to literally murder the girl. Like, Even like as a big man to a little boy, that man is a imps. As a big man to a little boy, I could see if you feeling big manish and you want to put that little boy in a place, you go and hit him some slap. That is the big man. You know, if you big and bad and I want to show off on a little boy, I walk up and I slap him up. Because I big and I bad and he can't do me nothing. But as a big man, to stab up a little boy, that is a real coward move. And I think they will deal with him when he reach inside where he going. Sweet Douglas, I always tell the young fellas that. I always tell these young guys that because I've been teaching for a while and I've seen it happen numerous times. You and her are girlfriend and boyfriend, and yes, she tell you she's your girlfriend, she really love you. But when trouble reach, would she say so? And when it's your word against hers, whose word will people believe? Like, bro, it's not worth it most times. It's not worth it. So that's why I'm saying on the side of trying to avoid that. On the side of trying to avoid that as a young man, this is something you have to always keep in mind. But that, I think that man will get dealt with when he reach where he going. Yes, they are, Sweet Douglas. Yes, they are. It has happened before, and it will happen again. And like, to some extent, not excusing young ladies for doing that, but to some extent, the whole human interaction and sexuality and all of that is a kind of complicated affair, or it could be a kind of complicated affair. So that's why, by and large, societies say that children shouldn't be involved in this thing on a wholesale basis. So as a young man, stay clear. Stay clear. Trouble easy to be found and hard to get rid of. Alright, that's all I have for now, folks. That's all I have for now. Until the next time, I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. I am Nathan Springer. This has been the Mindful Live show. Let's see if there's anyone over there with any comments on YouTube before I run away. Let's see. Good night, Sweet Douglas. Good night. Good night, everyone. Just looking to make sure I read the comments over on YouTube, if they would only pull them up for me. All right. Thank you to the viewers over on YouTube. Kareem Delpesh, always around, bro. Always a pleasure to see you out there. Appreciated. All right, folks. Until the next one, I will see you all later. Bye. Hold it down.